entrepreneurial training webinars, of which there are 18 altogether over the months of May and June. We've tried to prepare a very comprehensive package for you all. And this is a great group because we have about 60 participants signed up. So we're hoping to get some really good interaction from most of the participants, most of you guys. I assume you can all hear me, because if you can't, somebody is going to send me a chat or let me know. Before we get started, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge with respect the traditional territory of the Lekwungen people whose land this program is based, and the Songhees, Esquimalt, and Wasanig people whose historical relationship continues on with the land to this day. We thank you all for attending virtually from different traditional territories you reside. So thank you very much. Thank you for being here. I see we already have a couple of moderated. Sounds good. We hear you. Oh, all right. All right. So as I said, we have about 60 participants, and they're from all over, from South Vancouver Island, Central Island, North Island. We have Nunavut. We have Fort McMurray. It's quite an extensive group, and we're really, really pleased to be able to present this workshop to you. We're going to go through some housekeeping rules, and then we'll get started. Okay, so just bear with me. The program itself is funded by the Songhees Nation, the Victoria Native Friendship Center, and the Songhees Innovation Center, with additional support from Van City. So we thank all the funders very much. Their input and participation was excellent, and we're very pleased to have put this together for a presentation to the group. Okay, so let's look at some housekeeping rules. If your sound is off, you'll see a pop-up menu, and it'll tell you to unmute so you can hear me. For presenters, there are no other presenters tonight. The other thing I would suggest is if you look at my photograph and you can see me, handsome guy in the picture, right on the bottom bar, there's a docking symbol. I would click that, and that takes me out of the main viewing area. So you don't have that distraction. And the other thing I'll mention is from time to time, I will take myself out of the viewing area and put in one of my avatars. It could be George Clooney, it could be Tom Cruise, it could be any one of a number of people who actually look like me, and I've been, walking through the streets and saying, "Are you Tom or are you George?" And I say, "Yes, I am." Anyways, so let's get started. My name is Jay Silverberg, and I am your tour guide. And when I say tour guide, because the entrepreneurial experience is very much an adventure, and it is a journey. And the journey will be guided by myself, and there's a team of other facilitators and mentors who will be working with me. We have guest presenters from virtually every sector of the business world. We have a number of funders that are going to be speaking, so you can ask them. One of my favorite questions is, did you bring your checkbook, and can you get the spelling of my name right when you do the e-transfer? One of the things is, and we're going to start with, what are some of the other housekeeping? There is a chat function, which some of you or many of you have already discovered. Feel free to provide input. Feel free to ask any questions, and I'll try to get to them, as many as I can during the course of this workshop. Of course, with so many of you registered, it's going to be difficult. So I will get to as many as I can. Can anyone else not see the chat? No, the chats are only for me to view because I have to respond to them, and I will respond to them as many as I can. Okay. As I said, we'll be going through a question and answer period. There will be a number of videos and clips that we will be showing during the course of these workshops. And on the Thriving website, there will be a recording of this webinar, as well as a very extensive resource library that you might want to refer to. And I'll give you the website towards the end of this workshop. Okay. So we've gone through the housekeeping. One of my favorite quotes is actually by Albert Einstein. It says, "You have to learn the rules of the game, and then you have to play the game better than anybody else." And it's always been my contention that business is a game. And I will show you throughout these workshops how it is a game, how to play within the rules, how to play outside the rules as well, taking advantage of areas such as flexible ethics and other types of strategies that tend to get me into trouble sometimes. But we'll be going through the rules of the game and show you how business is a game and how best to play it. So what I'd like to see is some chats from you as who you are. First of all, I'm going to change my avatar because it's distracting. It's distracting for you and it's distracting for me. So, okay, we'll be very straight-laced for a while. There we go. Okay, that's better. So what I would like to get some information from you is why you're here, where you're from, and what is it you expect out of these workshops? Because I want to make sure that we respond to your needs and your individual needs. We try and cover as much as we can on an individual basis, but it's difficult with such a large group, and that's why we offer ongoing mentoring. So while you're chatting like crazy and getting back to me with where you're from and what as to what you would like out of these webinar series, I'll tell you a little about me. It's one of my favorite topics, so I'll tell you a little bit about me. Hang on, where do we go here? This is kind of the sum total of the kind of areas I've been involved in. A consulting service that did a lot of work in Aboriginal communities, Consultech, and these are some of the companies that I have started or helped start and sold. Here you see some international consulting I did for the People's Republic of China, not one of everybody's favorite countries these days, but I was doing some tourism development in indigenous communities throughout northern China and helping them develop a tourist market. And in this case, incidentally, I'm pretty sure that I got married to her. There was a ceremony. They were showing me some of their tourist activities, and they had a whole ceremony, and I met her mother, and I met her dad, and I didn't understand a word. It was a beautiful ceremony, and I'm not sure if I ever got married or not, but it was a lot of fun. Here we have a line called Alternative Goods, and it was nutraceuticals, healthcare products, bottled water, all with very much a First Nations Indigenous theme here. And you'll see some of the videos of these because it's interesting to show you how you can develop these from scratch and what it takes. Here we have Aksuk Aboriginal Food Products, where we developed a line of teas and chocolates, primarily for the tourist market. And quite successful, and I'll show you the video on that because it's pretty cool. Here was a company called Nutrilock, located in Kelowna, and it was all freeze-dried goods, fresh vegetables and fruit. This is a product line that I developed with some associates, and it's called Baby Boomer Reboot, and it shows how you can focus in on a market and try and capture a specific market. And this was obviously for the baby boomers who all wanted to stay young. They want to recapture their youth. So it was a marine phytoplankton product, very successful, sold in health food stores primarily through the US. Really great. This was one of my favorite projects, and it was called Ruski Brewski. And it was to take advantage of the Trump-Putin love affair. And it did very well for a while, but it was more a fad than a trend because, of course, the love affair is kind of broken off. And here's one that we will talk about. That's sawdust. And you think, well, making sawdust is not that exciting. But if anybody wants 10 million kilos of sawdust, that's roughly what we produced. And we were producing it for, of all things, the food market. There's a very good chance that a whole bunch of you ate some of my sawdust because our biggest client at the time was McDonald's. We produced a product called non-nutritive cellulose filler, which was basically finely ground sawdust. And we cleansed it as much as we could. We got most of the glass and nails out as much as we could. Then we sent it down to Chicago to be refined. And from there, it would go down to McDonald's meat packing plants. And they would make hamburger patties. And this is a lot cheaper than hamburger meat. So there's a very good chance. I don't think they use it anymore, but for years and years they did. But it just goes to show you, I mean, my partner and I built this plant, and it was about $5 million. And we did it with about $3,000 of our own money. Built a $5 million plant, and we were running 24/7. So it just shows that it can be done. And I will show you how we did some of these things and give you some of the strategies. Now, a lot of what we're going to be talking about, we talk about real world. And to me, that's really important because we want to make sure that what we're talking about and what I'm talking about and some of our guests, we talk about what it's like in the real world, not out of a textbook, not out of a how-to training course or, sign up and in 30 days you'll be a multi-billionaire. We're going to be talking about the real world and what it's like dealing with competition, getting funding, getting established, getting market share. And those are really important concepts because it's not textbook. A lot of what we're going to be talking about here aren't textbook. So one of the things I wanted to talk about are the two sides of entrepreneurship. There's the hard side and the soft side. And the hard side, a lot of people are familiar with because you all may have taken training courses, and you learned about business plans and cash flows and some marketing plans and marketing strategy. And then here you go, you've got your stuff. Go out into the real world and good luck to you. So that's the hard side. And we will be covering a number of those areas as well. But what we also will be covering, and to me is even more important, is the soft side of business. And the soft side is, what buttons do you have to push to get a customer to say yes? How do you respond to a customer's needs? Do you recognize that stuff like greed, ego, and flattery are what get people going in terms of getting them to commit? How to communicate, how to network. And we even talk about taking acting classes in terms of developing that business personality, but we'll be getting into that. So really there's those two sides of entrepreneurship. And just before we go through some of them, so this is me, and I am Mr. Nice Guy. Most people think I'm a nice guy, not everybody, but that's okay. I've been an entrepreneur for 45 years. I am a startup junkie. I love starting new businesses, as you saw from my bit of a portfolio. I'm a trainer and mentor. I was an economic development manager for 14 Indigenous communities up and down the coast. I'm an author, established author of a business handbook, and I've done work locally, nationally, and internationally. And let me tell you how I got started as an entrepreneur, because everybody's got a story. Everybody's got some sort of motivation as to what gets people going. I was a group controller. I had 26 companies under my control. And I was running from one to the other throughout Eastern Canada. And basically what happened was the owner, how can I put this politely? The owner crapped on me. And I swore I would never, if I ever got into business, I would never do that to anybody who was working for me. I was so put off by it. He actually, what happened was my daughter was born, and I called him up to tell him I was still at the hospital, and he insisted I come into the office for a meeting, and he gave me hell, and I said, okay, I'm out of here. And then I started my own business from there on in, and that's been about 45 years ago. And I swore I would always treat my employees like family. And when I had my consulting business, which was my last business, I had 35 employees working for me. And when I sold it, I made sure every one of them was bonused out. And they were paying off their student loans and buying cars and doing all sorts of wonderful stuff. But I wanted to make sure that what I experienced as an employee, even though I was pretty high up the scale, I was not going to turn around and do the same thing to people who were working for me. So that's a very valuable lesson. So let's have a look at why are you here? And let's look at some of these comments. Specialize in small, okay, horticulture, gardening, landscaping, carving, stone carver. So there's a few artists here. Okay, from Grand River. I want to make my side hustle legit. Not sure about that, what it's all about, but we will talk about it in the mentoring session. And okay, here's someone who wants to get into the tourism business. Somebody else for landscaping and gardening. There's a couple of technology people. So we have a pretty good cross section of the people who are attending these workshops, and that's good. So we talk about no bullshit, be real, have passion, and stay thirsty. And when I talk about no bullshit, and you'll have to excuse some of this swearing because when you've experienced as much as I have in the business world, sometimes it takes a little intolerance to get stuff going. When I say no bullshit, it means don't fool yourself. Don't fool yourself that it's easy. Don't fool yourself that anybody owes you anything. You have to learn to play in the real world, because the real world is where you are going to be hanging out, where your business is going to be working to get market share and dealing with competition, etc. And when I say stay thirsty, means stay hungry. Always be on the lookout for new and innovative products and ways to run your business. So there's several types of entrepreneurs or entrepreneurship. You either go into business to fill a void and an identified need, and that's really very much what it's like when we talk about present businesses. And we'll be talking about present and future as well. But in present businesses, it's very much an identified void. People don't want to get out. So you have delivery services, you have landscaping, et cetera, et cetera. So filling a void is one type of entrepreneurship. Copycat is another one. Copycat being doing what somebody else is doing and getting into a competitive field, as long as you know and you be comfortable that there's enough business for all of you. The other one is coattailing, and coattailing is riding on another business or another location's reputation. And a perfect example is Squamish rode on the coattails and is still riding on the coattails of Whistler. If you look at McDonald's, every time you see a McDonald's, there's a very good chance that it's the other way around. Every time you see a Burger King, there's a very good chance there's a McDonald's close by, because they're riding on the coattails of McDonald's. So that's coattail entrepreneurship, also quite successful. And the last type is innovative, where you take an idea, you're convinced it's going to work after you do homework and after you do research, etc., and you run with it. And I'm going to show you an example of that because it's one of the most entertaining businesses that was launched, and I did it with somebody else who is actually in this workshop, one of the other facilitators, whom you will meet. And where is it here? Here we go. So what you're seeing there is a video of a business that we launched. We tried to launch. It had some success, and it was very much a fad because it was a time where Trump and Putin were bosom buddies, but they're not so much anymore. But it just shows you can develop an idea based on a certain amount of innovation. And to me, the innovative ones are the most entertaining, but they're also probably the most dangerous in terms of risky. Now, when you're looking at developing your business, this is not a way to learn about business. There's tons of these workshops, tons of these trainers on the internet. And here's an example of Fred driving a GTS something or other. Must be a very expensive car, probably leased. And from a dishwasher owning a number of businesses across multiple industries, has mastered and implemented the 4 stages. That's all it is. 4 stages to become a successful entrepreneur. Well, this is BS. So you got to watch out for this stuff, because don't believe everything that you see in these ads. And here's another one. There's a book, is I Will Teach You to Be Rich. No guilt, no excuses, no BS. And in 6 weeks, you will be successful. Home business successful tools online. Business success made easy. There is nothing easy about business. To me, business is fun and money, but it's also a great deal of diligence. Really important. So just be careful of what's out there and don't fall for some of these. And really, one of the best things to do with your business and your business ideas, and this is offered as part of the program, is mentoring, one-on-one mentoring, either with myself or one of the other team members we have who are experts in certain fields of endeavor. And to spend some time, whether it's chatting or through Skype or through Zoom, and working together on your business ideas, and we'll be glad to do it. We have some of these others. There was no volume. Oh, there was no volume with the video? Oh, dear. Oh, I'll have to gain information. There was no volume with the video. I'll have to check that out. I wonder why. Okay, because I had volume on my part. Okay. On to the next one. So who becomes an entrepreneur? I assume there's volume now. You can hear me, right? Right. Okay. Who becomes an entrepreneur? There are 4 types of entrepreneurs. There is the opportunist. And the opportunist is someone who has a can't lose proposition. I'm going to go into this. It's great. I know what I'm doing. I don't need a business plan. I can get all the money that I need. And the opportunist is, very fly by night and a dangerous type of person to hang out with, because they will come to you and they're usually great salespeople, awesome salespeople. So you've got to be a little careful with them. And there are opportunists, and I've met a number of these opportunists who will come to me with different ideas and different opportunities. And a lot of times I will just smirk and, say, yes, sure. And then I send them on my way. Then there is the flyby. And these are people who go into business because of an emotional decision. And the emotional decision will be, I'm jealous of somebody who's in business and is probably making a ton of money. I'm going into this business because somebody owes me, or the world owes me something. And it's a very, very disastrous way to approach a business, saying, the world owes me, I'm jealous, I know what I'm doing. And it's usually a disaster, because you can't go into a business based strictly on an emotional decision. The third one, who you should be targeting, focusing, is a deliberate entrepreneur. Cautious, a planner, does their homework, does research, and knows what they're doing, and treads reasonably carefully, and doesn't take a lot of risks either. Okay. And the last one is the overthinker. And the overthinker will do 15 business plans. And a perfect example of an overthinker is my son. My son is an independent filmmaker. He's been doing independent films, short films, stuff for TV, stuff for National Geographic, History Channel. But when he works on his own stuff, he will go over the script and over and over. And I remember in one case, he was actually producing a reality TV series that he was going to launch. And he had about 5 episodes, and he wasn't happy with it. So he went back and edited, and he wasn't happy with it. And this went on and on for about 1.5 years. And after 1.5 years, he went from 5 episodes to a 20-second promo clip. And of course, it never went anywhere because a 20-second promo clip just wouldn't cut it in the marketplace. So, their overthinkers are good, but they rarely get anything done. So in terms of the deliberate entrepreneur, the secret is bringing it all out of you. And that's what we try to do in this workshop. Now, I'm hoping the video clips work. We will try the next one. I don't know why that one didn't work. Okay. So we're looking at 2 areas of opportunity. We're looking at the present and the future. And originally we were only going to be doing the future, which was, post COVID. The world will go on. One day we will go back to a normal life. But this situation that we have here is persisting for a while, and will be for a while too, for a number of months, hopefully over soon. So we also decided to look at present opportunities. And they're very different, extremely different, because you have to distinguish between a need and a want. A need is very present. Present opportunities are instant gratification. What do people need? And that would be, excuse me, stuff like, just some examples, delivery service, landscaping, exterior renovations, any kind of technology, different offerings. But these are present opportunities. They're instant gratification because you're filling an instant need. Whether they're long-term or not, I don't know. It's doubtful. But what you have to do is identify the specific need and try and fill that need. Whereas the future opportunities are more of a want. This is what I want to do. And it's a type of entrepreneurship that lets you dream, lets you plan, lets you build a sustainable business. And we talk, and one of the reasons we offered this program, or this program was offered, is it's important to start as soon as you can, because to build a business for the future, to build a sustainable business, takes time, takes planning, and it's best to get started as soon as you can. And quite frankly, we have time now. We're home. We have the stay-at-home rulings, and we have time to do a lot of planning, do a lot of research. It's a perfect opportunity to get something ready for the future, so that when COVID-19 starts to subside, or there's a vaccine, or the numbers come down and stuff starts to get back to normal or semi-normal, you will have something that you should be ready to launch into. Okay. We're going to try another video here, and it's one of my favorite, and I'm hoping that the sound will come through. I don't know why the sound wouldn't come through, but anyways, let me know if it does or it doesn't. Okay. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to try something here, see if it makes a difference. Just hang in there for a sec. See if this makes any difference. Technology. I
don't know what that dream is that you have. I don't care how disappointing it might have been as you've been working toward that
Good.
dream.
Okay.
But that dream that you're holding in your mind, that it's possible. That some of you already know that it's hard. It's not easy. It's hard changing your life. That in the process of working on your dreams, you are going to incur a lot of disappointment, a lot of failure, a lot of pain. There are moments when you're going to doubt yourself and say, God, why is this happening to me? I'm just trying to take care of my children and my mother. I'm not trying to steal or rob from anybody. Why does this have to happen to me? For those of you that have experienced some hardships, don't give up on your dream. There are rough times are going to come, but they have not come to stay. They have come to pass.
Greatness is not this wonderful, esoteric, elusive, God-like feature that only the special among us will ever taste. You know, it's something that truly exists in all of us.
It's very important for you to believe that you are the one. Most people, they raise a family, they earn a living, and then they die. They stop growing, they stop working on themselves, they stop stretching, they stop pushing themselves. That a lot of people like to complain, but they don't want to do anything about their situation. And most people don't work on their dreams. Why? One is because of fear. The fear of failure. What if things don't work out? And the fear of success. What if they do and I can't handle it? These are not risk takers.
You spend so much time with other people. You spend so much time trying to get people to like you. You know other people more than you know yourself. You study them. You know about them. You want to hang out like them. You want to be just like them. And you know what? You've invested so much time with them, you don't know who you are. I challenge you to spend time by yourself.
It's necessary that you get the losers out of your life if you want to live your dream. For people who are running toward their dreams, life has a special kind of meaning.
When you become the right person, what you do is you start separating yourself from other people. You begin to have a certain uniqueness. As long as you following other people, as long as you're being a copycat, you will never ever be the best copycat in the world. But you will be the best you can be. I'm telling you to define your value.
That everybody won't see it. That it's necessary to know that you are an uncommon breed. It's necessary that you align yourself with people and attract people into your business who are hungry, people who are unstoppable and unreasonable, people who are refusing to leave life just as it is and who want more. The people that are living their dream of finding winners to attach themselves to. The people that are living their dreams are the people that know that if it's going to happen, it's up to them.
If you want to be more successful, if you want to have and do stuff you ain't never done before, number two, I'm asking you to invest in you. To invest in you.
Someone's opinion of you does not have to become your reality. That you don't have to go through life being a victim. And even though you face disappointments, you have to know within yourself that I can do this. Even if no one else sees it for me, I must see it for myself.
This is what I believe, and I'm willing to die for it. Period.
No matter how bad it is, or how bad it gets, I'm going to make it.
I want to represent an idea. I want to represent possibilities.
And some of you right now, you want to be, you know what I'm saying? You want to go to the next level. I want to counsel. I want to be an engineer. I want to be a doctor. Listen to me. You can't get to that level. You can't get to a level economically where you want to be until you start investing in your mind. You're not reading books. I'm challenging y'all to go to conferences. I dare you to invest time. I dare you to be alone. I dare you to spend an hour getting to know yourself. When you become who you are, when you become the person that you were created to be, designed to be who you were designed to be, when you become an individual, what you do is you take yourself and you start separating yourself from other people. I'm trying to get to a place where people don't like you, don't even bother you no more. Why? Because you're not concerned with trying to make them happy. Because you're trying to grow up. You're trying to get to the next level. I need you to invest in your mind. Invest in your mind. If you still talking about your dream, if you still talking about your goal, but you have not done anything, just take the first step.
Then you can make your parents proud, you can make your school proud, you can touch millions of people's lives, and the world will never be the same again because you came this way. Don't let nobody steal your dream. After we face no rejection and a no, or we have a meeting, no one shows up, or somebody say, you can count on me, and they don't come through. What if we have that kind of attitude? Your car's repossessed. Nobody believes in you. You've lost again and again and again. The lights are cut off, but you're still looking at your dream, reviewing it every day, and saying to yourself, it's not over until I win. You can live your dream.
Well, if that doesn't get you all out there and ready to try your hustle, I don't know what will. It's one of the most motivating videos that I've ever seen, that I've ever shown. So we have some new people who are joining us, which is great. We have somebody from Sacramento now in the Upper Nicola. We have somebody who's looking to build a business for their family. We have speaker facilitator. It's awesome. We have a little bit of everything. One of the things that you should remember from that video, if you're going to take anything away from that video, is don't let anybody steal your dreams. These are your dreams. These are your ideas. You will find people who will be jealous, who will tell you that your idea sucks, that he doesn't know why you're trying it, that it won't work, that if you make any money, they want to be part of it, but you've got to build your business first. Don't let anybody steal your ideas, whether you're going into it as identifying a need or coattail or innovative, depending on what your comfort level is for risk in a business. Don't let anybody steal your dreams. This is your dream. It's not theirs, it's yours. In terms of entrepreneurship for today, there's tons of businesses that are developing that cater for today's market. And I mean, we hear about stuff like garage kitchens, where they're cooking and delivering prepared food, online sales, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Amazon. It can be anything from fashion items to health and beauty aids, online sales of indigenous art and jewelry, for exterior work, gardening and landscaping, because you have a lot of people who don't want to leave their homes, and they're more than happy to have somebody come in and, cut the grass and do their landscaping and plant bushes and do all sorts of wonderful things that they would normally do, but they either don't have the time or they probably have the time, but they don't feel like doing it. They're cloistered in their homes. So there's a ton of these people out there doing gardening and landscaping. You can do social media for your pet. That's something I actually saw, where somebody is offering to, if you put your dog or cat, I think this was primarily dogs, online, and they had games for pets and visiting between dogs online, and they were charging for it. Hard to believe, but it's instant gratification. Virtual dating, always very good, or getting connected with friends. I mean, here's an example, and this is on a small scale. Somebody came knocking on my door and they said, "Do you have any bottles and cans?" and we had a garage full of this stuff, and there's no way I was going to recycling center. He said, I'll take it off your hands and I'll clear it up. And so I talked to him about it. He was a young guy, and he'd already made like a couple of $1,000s over the course of the last 3 months doing this, going door to door and picking up people's cans and bottles, putting them together and going to the recycling, and hopefully being very careful and cautious about it. But it's an instant gratification type business. Will it exist after COVID? Probably not. But it just gives you an example of the kind of thing you can do. There's certainly anything that's online consulting, whether it's marketing, web design, graphics, business consulting. You know, I'm doing a fair amount of business consulting in terms of helping people with their business ideas, helping them with their business plans, their marketing. I know there's one facilitator online today. His name is Lex Dunn, and he will be doing a number of workshops on marketing and branding. And this is the kind of stuff that he does online. Kids' crafts. I mean, parents are just dying for opportunities for their kids who are stuck at home, and they need some activities, whether it's crafts or learning and anything online. I know I see my son who works at VGH in Vancouver, and he comes on every night to say hi, to check up on us. And he has his kids like crawling all over him, and I feel so sorry because he's got this haggard look on his face. Like, I don't know how much more of this I can take. But, you know, online activities for crafts, activities, gym, training, social networking, staying in touch. I saw one business where they stay in touch with seniors and elders, just check up on them, get them online, home delivery of anything and everything. So there are tons of opportunities. Really, it's up to you to come up with something and see how viable it is. And we will be going through all of that. We will be taking examples of businesses and how to plan it and get it running from the ground up, right from developing the idea, checking out to see if it fits with you and your personality, and how to get money, what to ask for, who to speak to, how to capture the market. We will be doing all those practical things. What we're trying to do, and certainly with the first workshop today, it's talking in a lot of the soft areas of entrepreneurship, which I mentioned right at the beginning. There's a couple of really interesting ideas that I found. Here's one, and this was in CBC, and it's traditional crafters indigenizing face masks and selling them for a great deal of money. So if there's any artists out there, and there are, because I see the comments, that there are a number of artists out there. Here's a perfect example of what to do, or an opportunity that you might want to get involved in. And they're selling them for a great deal of money. One of the questions that I see here is, will we be taught how to write a business plan? The answer is yes. But you will also be taught what a business plan is all about. Who are you writing it for? How to tailor it for your audience. Because a business plan is just a bunch of words and a bunch of number crunching, etc. But who is ultimately going to read it, which is one of the most important things of a business plan. So yes, we will be covering that. What each section of a business plan, how to put it together, what it means, and how to write for a specific audience. Here's a couple more. London Drugs is actually offering shelf space to small business impacted by coronavirus. So there's these opportunities that, you know, to get your product onto the marketplace. Here's one. It's a Nanaimo company, Aileelam, and these two sisters were actually part of one of my training programs, about 4 years ago, and helped launch their business. And today they're holding online fashion shows, and they're taking advantage of online trade shows and selling online and doing extremely well. Of course, their artwork is amazing as well. They're very talented. But there's an example of two young women who came into the program and talked them through, helped them through with their business idea to the point of getting it launched. Okay, so you'll have to distinguish between need and want, and I mentioned this at the beginning. The need is the present opportunities, instant gratification, stuff that people need, where you recognize a void, where you recognize something people don't want to do, or someplace they don't want to go. And want is what you probably want to develop for the future. Am I going too quickly here? I hope not. I get very enthusiastic when I talk about entrepreneurship and businesses. Okay, thank you, Pearl. So for the future, and we say, why now? And the quote is, where's the quote? And it's a really good quote. In every success story, you will find someone who has made a decision a while ago. And that's true, because it takes a while to get a business off the ground. And we'll be taking a full example of what this is all about and how to do it, and show you why it takes time to do it right, because it's your time, it's your money, it's your focus, and you want to make sure you do it right. So all that takes time, and it takes time, and it takes planning, and it takes homework and research, and it's really limited by your imagination and your drive. And we will be covering a lot of that. And don't forget, there is mentoring available. So when each and every one of you has a business idea or something you want to run by me, it could be a new business. And trust me, I've heard everything. I've heard absolutely every kind of business you can imagine. And I'm not talking about corner grocery stores or technology companies. I've heard everything. And don't forget, I used to sell sawdust. So that really shows you that, my imagination does run wild. I sold sawdust and Russian-oriented beer and all sorts of oddball things. So I enjoyed the innovative part of it. But so I've heard everything. There's nothing that you can tell me about in terms of a business idea that I haven't heard or would simply dismiss. I don't think well, that's not true. Somebody came to me once. I was doing work on the West Coast, and they wanted to put in Universal Studios in Tofino. And I said, good luck, since, put in $1 billion worth of tourist attraction in Tofino. So, but other than that, I think I've worked with just about every kind of business that you can imagine. But when you're talking about the future, it's really important to start planning now. And let's talk about a simple exercise. So if you want to grab a pen and paper, and this is something that I would like you to give a try, and just jot down some notes. Nobody's going to be correcting it. This is all for your own. And this is going to really start the process, because building a business or thinking about a business or considering going into business is the process. And it starts with ideas, and it starts with inspiration, So the first thing is, what business idea might work well? And this is a business for today. What do you think today's business might work well? And some of you, if you want to chat with me, you can tell me about it. But otherwise, just jot it down and say, okay, this is what I think I would like to do today. This is what I would like to do today, whether it's cooking or art or online, doesn't really matter. Done? And I have to tell you, in my experience of working with training and mentoring, I don't think I found many businesses that were not doable. There are some that are a little offbeat, but everything, if you put the right characters together and the right elements of the business, just about anything is doable. It might be a little different than what you set out to. And this is something else that you should know. This is your idea. You have an idea for business. What you end up with may not be exactly what you started planning and putting together. it may be completely different. Because as you're doing your homework and as you're doing your planning, you might say, well, whoa, this doesn't work. Maybe I've got to go a little left or a little right. And it might be a completely different application. So don't stay married to it. You can't be totally married to an idea. It's in flux. And it's important that you remember that business isn't cast in concrete until you're starting to cash your first Visa from your client, or MasterCard or Discovery. So the next thing you have to ask yourself is this something you can do? Self-assessment is an important part of entrepreneurship. And a lot of the counseling that I end up giving is, well, do you think you can do this? Is this business right for you? If somebody comes to me and they've been a forestry operator or working in tourism or whatever, and they say they want to open a restaurant, and I'll say, fine, here is my email. Send me the e-transfer. All the money you're going to lose, just send it to me now. It'll save you a lot of trouble and a certain amount of headache, because it has to be something that you can do. Really important, something that you can do. So to have some experience as a previous owner or employee is really important. And is this something you might want to do? And this is part of self-assessment, and we're going to go through the different areas of self-assessment that are really critical. And the questions that you have to ask yourself and be very serious when you respond to them, okay? Can the business survive past COVID? In some cases, people are developing businesses that once COVID-19 is over, it can continue. It's not necessary, but that's something that you have to determine. Once the crisis is over, and thank God one day it will be over, what will your business look like? Do you know that your business has a best before date, or is it something that you can continue and modify? Do you have any experience doing this? Does this inspire you? Entrepreneurship is an inspiration. You have to be a little crazy to become an entrepreneur. I mean, it really helps. You have to let your imagination run wild. You have to, you have sleepless nights. You can't sleep. You're not counting sheep. You're counting business plans as they're going over your head. You're counting customers. So there has to be an inspiration. Something triggered you to do this. And one of the last ones is, are you ready to work hard? And it's not as simple as saying, yes, I'm prepared to work hard. But it has to be, you have to be serious about it, because you don't want to waste time and you don't want to waste money and effort and, maybe getting your family involved or getting partners involved, etc. You have to be very serious about it. That's all I can say. The two things that I have always worked very hard to develop in any business that I've tried, and you can see, anybody who sells sawdust to McDonald's and sells Trump Putin beer, when I say I like to have fun and money in every business that I undertake, it's pretty obvious that I have a good time at it. And you need to have a good time. If you're not enjoying what you're doing, you won't do it for very long, or you'll be miserable. And the area that you will be miserable is once your business is up and running, where you got to go in every day and do whatever you need to do to open up the shop, to go out and market yourself, etc. If you're not enjoying the business, if you don't like the business, you will lose interest. And this is probably what kills businesses more than anything else. Now, let's take a look at the future. So have you made a whole bunch of notes about what you can do right now? Yes? I hope so. Good. I don't see any yes. Yes, yes, yes. Way to go. Okay, Tina. Of course, Tina. Tina's, yeah. Lillian. Hi, Lillian. How are you? It's nice to see some familiar names here, Okay. So I will once again change the avatar because he must be tired of looking at this. And there you go. Never get tired of the happy face. Okay. So any future business opportunity? Is there a business you've always wanted to try and you haven't been comfortable doing it? You haven't been comfortable exploring? Can you kindly send a contact person with Western Diversity? Yes, I can do that, Jacques. When I get off, I can do that. Is there a business opportunity that you have always wanted to try? Is there something I said, yeah, I want to try, but I don't know if it's right for me. I don't know if I want to do it. I don't know how to get started with it. We will show you. I mean, that's part of this program. Have you done your homework? So there's two things here. Have you done your homework and have you done daydreaming? Your homework is research. Research. And when you're done, you do some more. Daydreaming is what drives you. You know, you think about it during the day and you see the opportunity that it represents for you, your family, your friends, your kids. And the daydreaming is one of the purest pleasures of entrepreneurship. And we're going to go through, see, what I'm doing here is outlining some of the areas that we're going to be covering. Because we're going to be I'm going to be showing you how to take a business idea and doing your homework and develop the business opportunity, making sure that you arrive at a go, no-go decision as to whether you proceed with that business. Because that's important. At some point in time, you'll say, okay, I have enough information. Is it a go or is it not a go? You know, I've been working with one group who wants to build a movie studio on Vancouver Island. And this has been, and my job was to get them to the go, no-go decision. Does it make sense? Excuse me. Do they want to proceed? Does it make sense financially, et cetera, et cetera? So we've been doing a ton of research, a ton of meetings, et cetera. And we're not there yet, but we're closing in. So for every business idea, you're going to arrive at a go, no-go decision date. Okay. Do you feel that with some help, you might be ready to do what it takes to get your business going? What do you think? Do I hear yes? Do I hear an amen? Right. Good. So the spirit is there. That's really good. Well, that's a good part of what hi, Tina. I love you, Tina. You're amazing. Okay. So working together here, given the how-to, knowledge, resources, training, and mentoring, would you do it? That's what this program is all about. So what I recommend to you is, yes, this program is 18 workshops. That's a lot. And that's a lot of commitment that you have to make. But I would suggest you stick with it because every part of the program is going to give you different knowledge. And it's quite amazing the kind of resources, I think, the kind of resources that we have put together where we can get the information and impart the training. And, you know, we'll talk about red flags. We'll talk about the best way to proceed. And what we're doing is we're drawing this out of you because you wouldn't be here unless you had some good business ideas. You wouldn't be here unless there's something that's been bugging you in the back of your mind saying, I think I should try this, or how do I do this? Or maybe this is worth getting into. So you're here. It's a really good crowd. As I said, we have about 60 participants altogether, different participants and different nights, I would guess. But I would suggest stick with this program as much as you can. Really, that's my recommendation. You should attend as many of these webinars as you can. And the webinars are easy. You could be sitting there and, you know, have a beer, have a pizza, whatever. And it's not, it's not like the face-to-face workshops. You're in the comfort of your home. You can make notes. If there's anything else you want to talk about, anything that we've covered, just contact me. The best way to do it is to email me at VI Thriving, and we'll be in touch. And that includes you, Jacqueline. If you want that connection at WED, email me, because I may not remember after this workshop because I get too involved. So we talk about the past, present, and future. And that's kind of motherhood. And normally I hate motherhood. But what I have to say is this. There is a past. Everybody has a past. And people say, learn from the past and learn from your mistakes. The past is very historical. You can't build anything on the past, and don't dwell on it. It should be somewhere in the back of your mind that there's certain lessons that you've learned, but you can't live in the past. You have to leave your baggage at the door. The present is noisy. There's just so much going on between COVID. I mean, you can't open a newspaper. You can't open an online news service and not read about what's going on all over the world with our friends down in the States, whom I feel very sorry for. And that's a good business, selling Canadian passports to your friends in the States. But anyways, we can't get into politics. But the future is a great place to create something that will last, create something that will provide you the opportunity for financial benefits, for some sort of security, and for hopefully for fun as well. And you will meet roadblocks. You will have hiccups. You will have small mountains to get over. You will have the Himalayas to crawl over sometimes. But you've got to do it because it's all the price that you have to pay. And it's really quite simple. If it was this easy, everybody would be doing it. But it's not super easy, but it's very, very doable when you approach it right. So here are the workshops. And this is the first. Yay. The startup Indigenous businesses must have basics to succeed. And it's 4 parts. Today, tomorrow, so don't forget to tune in. Next week, the 11th and 12th. Then you have business strategies for existing Indigenous businesses. And it's not necessarily just for existing business, but it's more advanced strategies. And we talk about elements of the psychology of business and competition and surviving and how to grow your business, etc. So it's more advanced, but it's still very interesting for people who are even just learning to get into business. And in both of these, we have funders who are going to be speaking. We have TAC, which is an Indigenous funder. We have Van City, who are great for funding Indigenous businesses. We have Victoria Community Microlending, and we have Futurepreneur. And Futurepreneur is really for funding made available to anybody under 39. They're going for the youth element, and I missed the cutoff by about 3 days. Not much, just by about 3 days. So I'm hoping that they'll make an exception. But anyways, so we have funders speaking here. Then business opportunities for Indigenous entrepreneurs. Those are being run by Chris Cathers, who's a very successful Métis entrepreneur, several businesses, and very, very talented individual. Then we have communication, networking, and building your business contacts. And this is Lex Dunn, who is a very talented marketing and branding professional, and probably someone that you should be using for mentoring in terms of marketing, because the mentor is not just me, it's everybody on our team. Making technology your friend. Again, that's Chris Cathers. His company does an awful lot of online sales, development, social platforms, etc. Then you have marketing, branding, and guerrilla tactics for Indigenous businesses. Again, this is Lex Dunn who will be presenting this. And this will include, his courses will include acting classes. And acting is a really critical part of being in business. It's presenting yourself, how you carry yourself, what you say, what you don't say, how do you build your role as a business person. And it's a very effective type of workshop. Then you have one which is really 2 days, which is really a lot of fun, and it's the Business Rebel. And that's me. We talk about flexible ethics. We talk about using the system. We talk about using people, how to get the best of people, how to get on top of any situation, how to play mind games with people. And this is actually the kind of workshop that tends to get me into trouble, because I say stuff that people will look at it and say, I don't know about that. That sounds kind of out there. And it's supposed to be out there, because we talk about being a business rebel and setting you apart. And then July 7th and 8th, we have the competition. And the competition is cash prizes. There will be a competition for cash prizes between $500 and $1,000. We're not giving away $50 or a gift card to McDonald's. This is really to help entrepreneurs who have a reasonably good idea, and if they need, because a lot of businesses you can get off the ground for $500, $750, $1,000. Buy some equipment, do a little marketing, and you can have a business going. So they are cash prizes, which will be awarded, and we're going to give preference to anybody who is stuck with the series and been in attendance for all or most of the sessions. I think that's really important. And the other thing is, as I mentioned before, mentoring. And this is the one-on-one. It's kind of like, sometimes it's like going to your doctor. I often say mentoring is sometimes like going to your shrink or going to your proctologist and tell me everything that you want. There's nothing hidden. Tell me what your idea is. Tell me what you're worried about. Tell me what you need. And we try and work out some areas where we can be of assistance. So at this point, this is your dream. This is really your dream. And what I'm saying to you is, you have permission to dream. This is permission for you to dream, to inspire, to explore, to succeed, to imagine. Entrepreneurship is really your license to get out there. We're going to be, I like to present a number of these cliches or sayings. And some of them, you can say, how can you say that? It's almost insulting, but some of it is just to shake you up, and there's no way I was born to just pay bills and die. You have to break the cycle. And the cycle is, we're tired. We get, excuse me, we get into a rut. We're reasonably comfortable. We're afraid of change. People are afraid of change. It's human nature to be fearful of change. We're bored. And I say, stop it. Do something different. Take your idea and try and run with it. You don't know at this point if it's going to work, or maybe you do and you just need some more proof or justification that it will happen, or you need some money, or you need some input. But there's no way I was born to just pay bills and die. That's a wrong way, and it's a pretty harsh thing to say, but and really it's the saying that I've used is, I have a new address and I'm living outside my comfort zone. You will be outside your comfort zone a bit. You have to be, because that's what business, that's what entrepreneurship is all about. So here we have a day in the life of an entrepreneur. And you can see it's just ups and downs. It's kind of like the stock market, I'm excited. I have an idea. And this is the ideas part here. And then there's realization that this is a lot of work. And then there's the realization that, this is working. I'm getting some interest. I'm getting some calls. I'm getting some potential business here. And then something goes wrong, because at this point here, you're still tremendously insecure. Okay, and I messed up. I'm going to give it up, etc. And then give up the good for the great. Not sure what that really means, but I think I'm going bankrupt. And entrepreneurs worry about that. Cash flow is an idea. And then there's, I'm good. I don't know why I get so down on myself. Or I was wrong. I suck. And then, wait a minute, my life is great. And this is your aha moment where you realize that things can work. So the day in the life of an entrepreneur is very much up and down. And that's something that you will have to get used to. And it's a part and parcel of entrepreneurship. Here's one of these sayings that by Mark Twain that has gotten me into trouble. Is don't go around saying the world owes you a living. It was here first. And I see this quite often. It's dangerous to walk around with a lot of baggage, especially in entrepreneurship. Life doesn't really owe you anything. There may have been some incidents, there may have been some background, but you have to let go of your baggage at some point in time. You just do. Because if you don't, you will be dragged down by it. So it's not to say that you have to forego everything that's happened in your family, in the community, whatever it's been, but you can't live in the past. You have to live in the present and the future. And I'll give you one story. There was one community I was working in, and they had a beautiful piece of land, and they wanted to build marina and a resort. So I put the plan together. That was my job. And I found an investor. I found somebody who had built 800 marinas and resorts around the world. This guy was great. He was from California. And I found them an investor. And at the time, it was a fair amount of money. Back then, it was like $30 million. And then they had a community forum, a community meeting, and it was turned down. And it was turned down because people started talking about the past and trust, and they weren't looking ahead. And I'm not saying they were wrong, because it's a very personal decision. But the project was kiboshed because it just they couldn't see it fly. There were trust elements involved, and the investor, we took him somewhere else, and he did end up building it, and it's beautiful and it's successful. So you can't live in the past. You have to let go of some of the baggage. And it's not easy. I know it's not easy. It can't be easy. But it's a fact with entrepreneurship. In terms of Indigenous businesses, there are tons and tons of examples. In the resource sector, technology, you name it. The Soyuz has been extremely successful. Manufacturing, warehousing, you name it. Tourism, there's advanced fisheries, kelp farming, fisheries, obviously, and there's a lot of examples. There's Spirit Berry Coffee, which is out of Vancouver, and they're Indigenous owned, and they're very successful. You see their coffee everywhere. And there's another one called Aksak Aboriginal Foods, which is a concept that I developed for a couple of First Nations communities up island. And I'll show you a video on it, or a part of a video. And you'll see this was developed from scratch. There was nothing. And this was developed to develop a social enterprise where there was work going to be created for the youth in the community, for harvesting, for blending. But the products themselves were very tourism oriented. and well, you'll see it's kind of cool. So have a look, sit back, finish that last slice of pizza or whatever, and here we go. I'll play part of this, not all of it. So I think you get the idea. This was developed for the gift and tourism market, and it ended up being sold at all the major hotels and hotel chains. It was sold at the BC Museum in Victoria, and it did very well. And it got the youth involved in harvesting and blending, and the products were pretty unique. And I developed the brand, I developed the whole concept, the marketing idea. But that's a perfect example of the kind of work you can do. You can be innovative, and you can develop these kind of opportunities. And that's just one example, and there are lots. There are different resources available. There's business directories, there's awards, and there's even a business directory online in the resource sector of the Thriving website, because we put together a pretty extensive resource library. And I think there's a few other Aboriginal businesses or Indigenous businesses that I wanted to show you. Aboriginal. And you'll see that it's very viable.
From the desert vineyards of southern British Columbia to the frozen tundra high above the Arctic Circle,
That doesn't
to the
work.
urban center of Winnipeg and the rocky shores of Newfoundland. From the desert vineyards of southern British Columbia to the frozen tundra high above the Arctic Circle, to the urban center of Winnipeg and the rocky shores of Newfoundland, First Nations, Inuit, and Métis are establishing and promoting business ventures and partnerships that will provide long-term employment and benefits for years to come. Revenues are reinvested into infrastructure and new economic opportunities that will generate employment and support social programs into the future. At the core of these economic development initiatives, great consideration is given to maintaining a balance between progress and preservation of cultural heritage and the environment.
businesses we have here in Osceola, half of our businesses are in the tourism sector, golf courses, wineries, vineyards, cultural center. We're also in the construction industry. We're doing a residential development. We've got commercial developments, industrial developments, but at the same time, the vast majority of our land we're going to leave in its natural state, because that's also part of our responsibility. We're not looking to maximize every square inch of our reserve in terms of economic development, because half of our responsibility has to be to the environment and to our cultural activities.
The leaders of Wendake First Nation in Quebec realized the potential for economic benefits through tourism. Their newly built First Nations Hotel Museum gets its inspiration from Huron-Wendat culture. This is one of many integrated, sustainable economic development projects of a social and cultural nature that Wendake has created. Not far from this 4-star hotel museum, the Huron Traditional Site also provides visitors an opportunity to discover the history, culture, and lifestyle of the Huron-Wendat people. In Winnipeg, 2 Métis siblings formed a 100% Aboriginal-owned company with a passion for keeping their heritage and culture alive. Manitoba Mucklucks produces original footwear, balancing traditional and contemporary elements.
Here at Manitoba Mucklucks, we produce over 200 pairs of mucklucks per day. We have over 50 staff. We are sold in 22 different countries and counting.
It's important for us to be made in Canada. It ties closely into our heritage and our tradition and culture. And so that's always been very important in everything we've done at Manitoba Mucklucks.
When the Inuvialuit of the Northwest Territories successfully negotiated their final agreement land claim in 1984, they set up the Inuvialuit Regional Corporation to enable their people to be equal and meaningful participants in the northern and national economy and society. They have legal control and ownership of 91,000 square kilometers of land, including 13,000 square kilometers with subsurface.
Well, I think that gives you a pretty good idea of what's out there and what can be done when you put your mind to it. And here's something else that's important. One of the cornerstones of entrepreneurship, as far as I'm concerned, is inspiring and motivating others. And, you know, as an entrepreneur, as an Indigenous entrepreneur, people will watch you. People in the community will watch you. People in the community, if you are successful, will not only respect you, but try to emulate you. Use you as an example for others in the community, and you want to inspire. And I think inspiration is a really big part of it. You want to give back, and I think that's a really important part of entrepreneurship, is giving back to the community. And there's an interesting video here that might load, might not. There we go.
The future of Indigenous business in Canada, to me, is an opportunity for Indigenous peoples to get closer to practicing self-determination. All the beautiful things that we envision for our communities, for our children, for our languages, for our culture, we're going to need an economic base to be able to pay for those things. We need business people who have extra money to be able to invest back into our own communities. So if we stick together, we find business success both individually and as communities, and then we remember to give back to the communities we come from, then I think we can be very successful and say that Indigenous business is also key in being true to who we are.
So that gives you an example of just a few, and there are many more Indigenous businesses. And inspiring and motivating is really important, because that's giving back to the community. That's giving back to the youth. That's giving back to the kids, give them examples, show them that there are opportunities out there. So we're going to take a 10-minute break at the most. 10-minute break at 7:26. So at 7:35, we'll come back and we'll start the new section, which is all about the traits of entrepreneurship and what it means to be an entrepreneur and how to start a business. That's the next area that we're going to be covering. How to start a business and how to check out if your business can be successful or not. So go ahead. Here's a chance for your biological break. Used to be called a smoke break, but there's so few smokers now. And we'll see you back here at 7:35. Please don't be late because we have a lot of information to cover. Thanks. Okay, welcome back. We're going to talk about starting a business. And the saying goes, David Green had a very famous saying, is business is easy, but it's so easy to make things complicated. Business, when you boil it down to its basest element, business is not complicated. It's not easy, it's not super easy, but it's not super complicated. So here you have 16 stages of getting a business up and running. And let's have a look at each one. The first one, obviously, coming up with an idea. And we're going to talk about where ideas come from. But coming up with an idea, whether it's a new idea or it's copycat, whatever. You have an idea, you have a vision, you can't sleep, you daydream about it. This is what you want to do, this is what you want to try. You feel that it can succeed, you feel that it can work, but you may not be sure whether it will work or how to put the planning or funding together. So the next thing you do is you flesh it out, either on your tablet or your computer or even in a notebook, everything you can think of about the business, how you see it running, what your questions are, what you may be concerned with, everything about the business. Because at this point, you have to take an idea and you have to start to make it real. And real means you got to get your arms around it. What exactly is it? The next thing is your visions and goals. Whoops, where are you? There you are. Your visions and goals. What is your vision for the business? What do you want it to look like? Who are you going to sell to? Where do you want to be in a year? Where do you want to be in 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years? Never take it beyond 3 years, because anything beyond 3 years is strictly a pipe dream. I mean, that's nobody knows what's going to happen in 3 years. Even 2 years is a lot. So where do you want this business to go? And what are your goals? Is it because of financial security? Is it to secure something for the family? Is it to build something based on what you have experience with? So define your vision, define your goals. What exactly do you want out of this business? And don't use motherhood anywhere. Motherhood is really dangerous. And when you're doing a business plan and when you're doing a presentation for funders, the one thing they hate is motherhood. Motherhood stuff like I want to help the environment, or I want to be the best that I can be, or I want to be the next Amazon, or I mean just I want to make a difference in the world. They're all interesting, but they're all motherhood, because it doesn't really mean anything, because everybody will ask, well, what exactly does that mean and how are you going to do it? So be very careful when you establish your goals and make them more practical, doable, realizable. The next thing is to do homework. And homework means you want to justify that the idea can work. So this is market research, and this is one of the most important parts of planning a business. And I believe Lex will be covering off marketing and market research when he does his workshops. But you really want to do your market research online. You want to visit your competitors. You want to contact companies that are doing something similar to what you're looking to do, but they may be doing it elsewhere. So you can call them and speak to the owners. Entrepreneurs are very lonely people. They really are. It's a characteristic of entrepreneurship. So they like to talk. If they don't see you as a threat, they will talk to you. Okay. Find role models. People are doing something similar to what you want to do, and find out how they do it, how they market themselves, how they price themselves, what products or services they offer, anything you can about them. And as I said, if they're out of town and they're not competitors, contact them, speak to them, test it out. Test it out, meaning check out the product, check out the service. For example, there was one person in my class who was going to make gluten-free muffins. That was her product. She was a baker, and she wanted to make these gluten-free products, and she brought them to class, and they were okay. I mean, they could have been made with my sawdust, but they were okay, and she wanted to test them. So she said she wanted to give them to a bunch of friends, and I said no, because you can't test anything with friends and family. They will either tell you they're amazing, like your mother, or they will tell you this is real crap, or you're gonna lose everything you invest, because there might be jealousy, there might be some animosity. So one of the things I suggested with her was take platefuls of samples and set up in the parking lots of Starbucks and Timiho and hand out samples. And, she did it until somebody came out from the company. But she was there like for an hour and a half at each location. And she gave out samples and she said, what did you think? Would you pay $1.50 for this? Would you pay $2 for this? How did it compare to what you had inside? And so she gathered a great deal of information, testing it out. There was another one who was setting up massage, and I think it was called Reiki. Anyways, it was some sort of massage therapy. And she wanted to know how people would react to it. But she was going to hand out gift certificates, at the mall and stuff. I said, no, here's what you do. Set up outside in the parking lot of Walmart. Set your table up and give people 10 minutes and ask them how they like it and would they be interested in trying the service and would they be interested in the complimentary. So, and she was so successful. She had more business than she knew what to do with. So there are ways to test stuff out. And that's what you want to do, is test it out. Do your strengths and weaknesses. And this is looking at a business and doing strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we will be covering that type of assessment. And that's a very important assessment. Can the business survive the scrutiny of looking at its strengths and weaknesses? Like, what are you bringing to the table? Who is the competitor? What opportunities are there for growth? What are the threats? Is it the economy? Is it competition? Stuff that you have no control over. And so doing it's called SWOT, SWOT analysis, is very important. And in all of this, you can't wear rose-colored glasses. You have to look at it logically. And this is where a mentor will come into play, because when you do a SWOT, the mentor will look at it and say, and they'll tell you what works, what doesn't, where you might be putting on rose-colored glasses, and what does make sense. So a SWOT is a good analysis for the business opportunity. Then there is the fit with you. How does it fit with your experience? How does it fit with what you've done in the past? Do you have any experience in this? If you're a woodworker and you want to set up a restaurant, I would suggest you drop me an email and I will give you my bank account number, and you can e-transfer me all the money that you're going to lose in the restaurant business. So there has to be that fit with your experience and what you're capable of doing. And sometimes that dream has to be brought into the sense of reality. So it has to fit with who you are, what your experience is, and it doesn't necessarily mean work experience. It could be your hobby or what you do around the house, what you do as an employee elsewhere, what training you may have had. So there has to be a fit with you in terms of experience and personality-wise. If you don't like people, don't go into retail. I had a very good friend of mine, and he was very shy. He hated people. He actually hated people. So what he did was but he was a very bright guy, and he became a doctor, but he became a radiologist. So he never had to really speak to people. He was always working in the labs or doing analysis of X-ray and imaging that was coming through. But he didn't have to be nice to people. He didn't have to deal every day with people. And it was a perfect fit for him. So the fit has to be there. It does. And the next thing is numbers crunching. This is something people are not necessarily very comfortable with. They may or may not have had experience in it. And we will be going through a few scenarios of numbers crunching just to show you how to simplify it. And most of the funding agencies have some really good financial templates, cash flow templates, profitability templates, and we'll be going through some of them so you can have some practice in it. And the next thing is your marketing plan. How are you going to capture some market share? You have to assume that unless you're developing a brand new product, you are going to be stealing business from somebody. Because the market is only so big. It's like a pie. Look at it as a pie. And you want to capture a piece of that pie. Well, somebody is already fulfilling that. So you want to see how you can capture a piece of the market from them. So how are you going to get the word out there? How are you going to price yourself? How are you going to make yourself stand apart? And this is where marketing and branding is so important. And again, you will be spending some time with Lex Dunn, who is a very good friend and a spiffy dancer. And he's also a very talented marketing person. So not only the workshops with him, but he will also be one of the mentors that you can end up working with him. And he's a really good resource as well. Then there's the operational plan. And this stuff is kind of boring, but very important. Location, licensing, any regulatory approval from the city or the community, any taxes, leases, rental agreements, where are you going to get your equipment from, supply chain, where are you going to get your products from? And it depends what you're going to be doing. Human resources. Do you have to hire people? Where are you going to get them from? What kind of people do you want to hire? And the rule of thumb is always hire people who are smarter than you. Don't hire gophers. Don't hire yes men. Hire people who are smarter than you and listen to them because that's what you're paying them for. Then you put it all together in a business plan. And the business plan, which we will go through in great detail at one of the future webinars, is your planning document. And there are business plans and business plans are different. Could be a business plan for you, in which case it's the Bible that you're going to work from. Business plan for a funder that has to have certain elements in it. Business plan for a partner that has to have certain elements in it that presses the right buttons for the people who are going to read it. So business plans are very much geared to the target audience that's going to read it. And in some cases, you can have 2 or 3 business plans, slightly different, slightly more marketing oriented, depending on who your target market is. Then you have your action plan, which is your baby steps. How are you going to make this happen? Step by step, how are you going to make this happen? Then item 14, which I think is really important, is communication and networking. You have to learn to build a network. You have to learn to be comfortable with your role as a business person. How do you carry yourself? How do you, I was going to say take advantage of people, but that's not necessarily the case. How do you network successfully with people? When you get together with them at a trade show, how do you get them to open up? How do you get them to be on your side? And a perfect example is at one get together, I met this fellow and I had done some background on his company. He had a plastic injection molding company. Not the most exciting thing in the world, but it was a big company. He had about 200 employees and I really wanted to get his business. Excuse me. So I met him at a trade show. And he wasn't the most exciting individual. I mean, it was plastic molding. And what he made was garbage cans. Everyday garbage cans. So how do you strike up a conversation with somebody who makes garbage cans? And it was like, oh, really? What size garbage cans do you make? Is it for residential or commercial? Are there household garbage cans? Do they come in different colors? Where do you sell? Do you make garbage cans for people like Canadian Tire with their name on it? Do you do any promotional garbage cans, any types of different products or bins? Do you do any recycling bins? And this went on for about 30 minutes. And I was having trouble staying awake. But the thing was, I was showing interest. And nobody had done that. People heard he was, plastics manufacturer of garbage cans. He was, it just was no interest to most people. Whereas I knew I had to show an interest, kind of soften him up. And the one thing I was waiting for him to say is, well, what do you do? And that's when I jumped in. And he became a client, a long-term client. And I actually convinced him to expand his business and start making pink flamingos, those lawn ornaments and little gnomes for gardens. And he did really well. He made, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of pink flamingos and garden gnomes. And he still kept making garbage cans. But that was acting because, frankly, I had zero interest in his business. None. My interest was in getting him as a client. So acting classes give you that ability to personify who you want to be in someone else's eyes. And that's part of acting. Taking on a role or play acting. And that's one of the things that you're going to be covering in these webinars. I have a question here from Stephen. What was that name again? I assume we're talking about the marketing guy, and that would be Lex Dunn. Lexdunn, who is not only a good friend, he's very gifted marketing person. He has he's been on TV and movies. He was actually one of the co-stars in Trailer Park Boys. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. He's done theater, tons of theater. He's done acting classes. What's it called? Not only acting, but improv classes. And he's also a very gifted marketing man. He's done marketing and branding in First Nations communities right across Canada. So he'll be an interesting person to speak to. And then there's money. Money, the curse word money. But if you do all of this and you package it in a business plan that makes sense, you'll find that the money is a lot more readily available, because that's what one of the things they look for is the credibility and the fact that you've done your homework. And we not only have guest speakers from some of the funding agencies, but I will be talking to you about how to ask for money. There's things you say, there's things you don't say. How do you press all the right buttons? And it depends who you ask for, whether it's for a partner or a bank or one of the Indigenous funders. There's different ways of asking for money. It's not just a matter of filling in forms. You have to make them comfortable. And that's one of the things we talk about in terms of pressing buttons. And then before you launch, you recheck and recheck and recheck to be comfortable. So that's it. 16 stages. That's it. We're done. Just kidding. We'll be talking about each and every one of these and show you how to do it and give you some advice on each one. So now I'm going to change my avatar again, only because it's time. And there we go. Yeah, so there we go. So business is not rocket science. It's very straightforward. So here's a story, and this is a classic story of a kid who opens a lemonade stand. And this is a true story. This has actually become one of the training pieces in every entrepreneurial training program. So it's a 10-year-old kid who decided he was going to open a lemonade stand because he wanted to buy a bike. That was his goal. He wanted to buy a bike. So this is a business model. He lived near a stop sign. And so there was a very steady traffic and walk-by traffic. And he counted, he checked who was going by, that there were enough people there. So that was market research. He counted the cars and the people and the joggers. So that was part of his market research. He made sure that his market was there and he was setting up in the right location. He asked his mom to help him buy the ingredients. That's the supply chain for manufacturing. He worked out with his parents the cost per drink and also what he thought he could charge. So there he did his numbers crunching. He set up a stand and drew up a really cute sign. So that was his marketing. He was very polite and appreciative. And he really knew how to smile at people when they walk by. So that was customer service. He made his money and he quit or retired when he had enough money to buy a bike. So that was his exit strategy. So there you have a kid opens a lemonade stand, goes through all the major steps of starting a business, and is successful at it. So that's an example of the process of starting a business. But think of business as a game. There's lots of competition and a minimum of rules. That's Bill Gates. And the saying by someone who you would least expected, the Dalai Lama, very spiritual, obviously, know the rules well so you can break them effectively. And breaking the rules is a big part, not necessarily breaking the rules, but bending the rules is a big part of being successful in business so that you stand apart. And we talk about that. That will be covered in the area where we talk about flexible ethics, which is one of my favorite topics. But business itself is a competitive game. I mean, you have monopoly, you have junior monopoly, senior monopoly, entrepreneurial game, the business game. Business really is a competitive game. And it's very much like sports. You have teams, you have competition, you have rules, you have branding. So it is very much a game. And if you look at it that way and you integrate some of that into your business plan, then it will make you more successful. So the entrepreneur, you're chasing a dream, you're inspired. You better be inspired. You better be inspired. Because if you're just doing it on a whim, you're going to give up very easily. You have to be strong. You have to be resilient because you will be getting to areas where it's tough and you will meet roadblocks. And you got to find a way to deal with it and get it. And this is what I said right near the beginning. Your final business may not be exactly the same as the business that you had envisioned. It might be dramatically different or just slightly different to make it fit with the real world model. You have to be slightly crazy. You have to be slightly crazy. And you have to trust your madness. I've always said successful entrepreneurs are all a little crazy. They really are, because they talk about their business and there'll be a sparkle in their eye, or there'll be this glint where you know that their mind is wandering. They're thinking about what they've done or where they need to be. They try stuff that you would say to yourself, that's crazy. Like, why would you set up a massage table in the parking lot of McDonald's or Walmart? Why would you do stuff like that? You have to be slightly crazy. You have to be dedicated. Once you get your business going, you have to be dedicated because you've got a lot of time, resources, and money invested. So you better be dedicated. You have to be confident. Now, is it real confidence or is it play-acted confidence? It's really a combination of the two. When you're dealing with customers, whether it's online or face-to-face, you have to come across as a really confident person. And part of what we talk about later on as a business rebel is I will teach you how to skate. Because if you're a new business, and I did this when I first started my consulting practice that I ended up selling back east with 35 employees, but I started in my basement and I had no money. And my first client was a printing company. And so I said, I don't want to get paid, but I want brochures, and I will design them. And I built these brochures to look like I was one of the largest consulting firms in Eastern Canada. And it got me a lot of attention, but really it was only me working out of my basement. But I was very confident, and I had to skate. Like, people would say, how long have you been doing this? And skating means, oh, I've done this kind of work for years, but let's talk about your business. So you learn to turn the tables. And these are all kind of tricks of the trade that I will relay to you and teach you, and Lex may do it as well in his marketing and play acting, because it's all very part of real or play acted confidence. But you better be confident with your clients, or they will say, he doesn't have a lot of experience in this. I think I'll find somebody else. Focused. Focus is really important. A lot of entrepreneurs that I've dealt with, they will start a business, and somewhere along the way, they will see a shiny coin on the road. And they'll say, ooh, that's really interesting. So they'll put their business or everything that they've worked on aside for a while and research this new opportunity. You can't do that. You kind of have to wear blinders. You have an opportunity, take it to its nth element, take it to its yes or no, go or no go decision, and then move on to something else if you want. But don't keep hopping around. You have to be very focused. And reward versus risk. You have to look at the risks involved. Is it financial risks? Is it personal time? Are you prepared to put in the time and risk for the potential rewards that you're looking to reap from a business? So these are the things you have to consider as an entrepreneur. I want to get past this because I want to tell you about Bert. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to make a living when all we do is work. And, one of the quotes that I've always liked, and you might want to jot this down because it's not in any of the presentation material, is, you were born to be an original. Don't die a copy. Like, dare to be different. If you're going to try something, even if it's something that already exists, a type of business that already exists, make it a little different. Make it very personal. Put yourself and your own personality in there so that it will come across to your clients and potential clients. The other saying that I always liked that my mother taught me is, if you don't try, you don't get. She taught me that. Wonderful woman. And it's very true. You have to try to whatever degree, to whatever length that you can make it, to whatever stage of entrepreneurship. Try. If you don't try, you'll never know. So let's talk about Bert, one of my favorite people in the world. Bert, as in Burt's Bees. Everybody's heard of Burt's Bees now. But Bert started out making salves and creams and potions, making them in his shack in the back, unheated, wintertime, super cold. And he would package these things. And it was all done from the byproducts of bees and beehives, because he was a bee farmer originally. So he used to go to craft fairs and flea markets and sell his product off the back of his truck. He'd make a couple of $100, and he thought it was great. I mean, he was happy doing all that. But he never said, I can't. And one day he met a marketing person who helped put it all together. And you can see his face. I think his face is still on a lot of the products. And they expanded it. They did a lot of branding. They came in at just the right time in the market, where the organic and the nutraceuticals and the all natural products were coming into play. And then he sold it. After a number of years, he sold it, and he bought a motorcycle, and he went traveling through the States, and nobody ever heard from him again until he died. And when he died, The reason you heard of it, because he left a legacy somewhere down in the States where he bought, I think it was, I can't remember how many thousands of acres of parkland, and he gave it over to like Wilderness Society. He was a real outdoors guy. But he sold his business. And how much do you think he sold it for? Anybody want to guess? Before he got on his motorcycle, he sold his business. Come on, let's see some guesses here. 5 million? No. No. Higher. Peanuts? No. 100 million. 20 million. Huh. Is that it? Okay. He sold his business for, drum roll please, $925 million. And this is him and his dog. And this is where he lived. Never spent a ton of money. Just bought a super fancy motorbike. Him and his dog traveled through the States. And when he died, he left most of his fortune to buy a wilderness, as I said, huge tract of land. But that was Burt's Bees. So there's a success story. I mean, if Burt can do it, and it was around the same time that Celestial Seasoning, I don't know if you've ever seen Celestial Seasoning, the teas. They started in Boulder, Colorado, and it was really a bunch of hippies who went down into the canyon, and they used to grab some flowers and weeds and shrubs and make tea. And then they developed this tea and started marketing it. And they came out at the time where all natural products were becoming very big, and organic products were becoming very big. And they sold their product to, I can't remember, it was either Nestea or Red Rose or somebody, for just millions upon millions of dollars. So the last thing I want to cover is something called the spectator mode. Because after this, we're going to talk about where ideas come from, and I think that's a chapter in itself. The spectator mode means, how do you look at a business idea? And the best way to do it is pretend that you're in an arena or a stadium, and you're up in the stands, and you're looking down at the field. So you have to be as objective as possible. And you have to try to be a spectator, looking at an opportunity and being as objective as you can. So it's called spectator mode, because you're not a participant, you're not waving a flag, you're not supporting a team, you're looking at it from the outside in. And that's a very, very important way to look at any opportunity. If you get too excited about the opportunity, then you're not being objective, and you've got to be as objective as possible. So the next area that we're going to talk about is where ideas come from. And I think we'll start there tomorrow, because we've covered a lot of ground. I hear my cat at my door calling out for some attention from me. So hang on. I'm going to sign off for now. Anybody have any questions? Anybody want to comment? Is this helping out? Is this what you expected? Because we get into a lot more of the specifics of the business plan, the financial part, how to get people to say yes, how to get into people's heads, what funders we work with, how to ask for money, the best way to build your business. Okay, all right. Okay. Well, I see Lex is still on here, and he wants me to work for him at $1,200 an hour. Well, we'll talk about that, Lex. I think we'll have to bump those rates a little bit. Just kidding. But you want to try and stand apart as much as you can. You want to be a spectator. Yeah. Thank you, Tina. It's great to see you again. Well, I haven't seen you. I've seen you in pictures. Listen to all you. So tomorrow, same time. The software itself, Click Meetings, issues invitations. Sometimes a few too many, but that's how the software works. So you'll get a couple of invitations, an hour or two before the workshop, and then I think a half an hour before the workshop. And yeah, so join. Please come back. Tell your friends. We can, they can log in if they want to send me their information. I'll give them a login site, or you can copy and paste the login URL or HTTP that you have in your invitation. And tomorrow it's a continuation of this. It's where ideas come from, business planning, how to, let's see what else there is. Oh, there's tons of good stuff. All good. I think it's all good. And we've tried to keep it as user-friendly as possible. If you find that there's other areas that you want to cover, either let me know in the chats or drop me an email and I'll see what I can do to accommodate. But I think that's it for one night. I really appreciate all your time and attention. I'm very proud to be doing this with you. I don't know if Sam from the Songhees Innovation Center is still here, or Nadia from the Vancouver or Victoria Native Friendship Center, but thank you to both of them for helping to put this together and seeing the value of it. As I said, we have over 60 participants signed in. There's quite a group here tonight, and it's just great to be here. I love talking about business. It's one of the loves of my life. I've certainly started enough businesses, everything from nutraceuticals to Ruski Brewski to you name it. I'm going to play Ruski Brewski for you one more time because it was played with the sound off, but to me, it's a great promotional video just to show you how something can be made from just an idea that's out there. So I'm going to play this, and this is going to be the farewell, so hang around. Here we go. You should hear this. It's pretty cool. Come on. Come on.
I know you since you were a 20. I was 20 and thought that 20 years from now. I purple little lady with a perfect arterial useless found. So yeah. Brewski Brewski. You're supposed to amend this deal in history appeal. Brewski Brewski is beer.
If we can do it, you can do it. And we'll try and help you with whatever your business opportunities and ideas are. So good night, stay well, stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Good night.